And so he spoke, and so he spoke, that Lord of Castamia. But now the rains weep o'er us all, with no one there to hear. Yes, now the rains weep o'er us all, and not a soul to hear. Winter is here.
They all flow down here.
What is up, everybody? This is Atticus, the Death Metaler, and the 7th season of Game of Thrones is halfway done. Of course, Daenerys Targaryen has lost a chunk of her allies and forces, Cersei Lannister is being the bitch that she is, and Jon Snow is just trying to figure out how the fuck that they can get the Dragon Glass before the army of the dead enters Westeros. And just like with every season of Game of Thrones, SJW Butthurt looms around the horizon. Now, on this case, it is on John Boyega, the actor who played Finn from Star Wars, and of course the lovely Huffington Post. Now, it is no stranger that I have made videos on SJWs bitching, moaning, and pissing and complaining on Game of Thrones, and Game of Thrones is no rumor to controversy and all that stuff, which, if you watch the 2 videos that I have down in the description below, you would understand why all these regressives get so butthurt onto Game of Thrones. Now, on the first portion of this video, we're going to be targeting John Boyega. Now, John Boyega is not that very keen onto Game of Thrones, and his reasons why? For the lack of diversity. I think it's the dumbest reason why you are not interested in watching Game of Thrones, and I'll explain later after reading this portion of the article. John Boyega says that there are no black people on Game of Thrones. You don't see one black person in Lord of the Rings, Boyega said in a recent interview with GQ. I ain't paying money to always see one type of person on screen, because you see different people from different backgrounds, different cultures every day. Even if you're a racist, you have to live with that. We can ruffle up some feathers.
Wrong. That is absolutely wrong. Proved over and over again. Wrong. He actually had.
All right then, Boyega. You say that you haven't seen any black person in Game of Thrones. Maybe, just maybe the reason why is because you haven't seen a single episode of Game of Thrones, perhaps? Or, I don't know, you haven't been watching all the seasons that much? Because there is a good portion of black characters in Game of Thrones, especially in the Song of Ice and Fire books. Like, for instance, Davos Seaworth's friend from season 2, 3, and 4, Salador San. He's a black pirate. And also, the actor is from Nigeria. Let's not forget about Zaro Zohan Daxos of Karth. He's a British black actor. And what about fan favorites Missandei and Grey Worm? Both British biracial actors. And also, let's not forget about Khal Drogo. And the reason why I'm going to bring Khal Drogo up, Jason Momoa, is because Jason Momoa is a Polynesian. So, yeah, Game of Thrones already has a diverse cast. The thing about this is that George R.R. Martin is a fan of history. So he wants his realm of Westeros to be like that of medieval England. Westeros is like Europe in a sense, while Essos is pretty diverse with all the races over there. It's pretty much like Conan the Barbarian land, except for like the western part of Essos where the free cities are at, where there's a bunch of white people living around there. But like places like Slaver's Bay where you have like Middle Eastern people and, you know, black slaves there. And not to mention that other parts of Essos where you have the Dothraki, which are pretty much like Asian stepmen or something. But I always picture the Dothraki to be much more akin to the Scythians. And they were like the earliest horsemen around the Caucasus regions back in the ancient world. That's how I always pictured the Dothraki to be like. It's really stupid that you say that Game of Thrones has no no black people in Game of Thrones, but the only black people that are on Game of Thrones are slaves and shit. Well, yeah, they are slaves. I mean, the Unsullied were slave warriors, but Daenerys Targaryen is like, you are fighting for me. You are fighting for freedom to be free fighters for me and shit like that. But no, that doesn't really count because they're black slaves and shit like that. So, John, the reason why you are stupid is because you claim to say that there is no black person in Game of Thrones, yet you clearly show no knowledge of the show in general. So, you know nothing, John Boyega. See what I did there? And then, of course, we have the lovely Huffington Post on this segment of this video. Huffington Post, I never really liked. They are the SJW equivalent to anal cancer, in my opinion. And I stumbled across this article on the Huffington Post, and where they said that Missandei and Grey Worm's intimate sex scene was beautiful and consensual, and it was the only consensual sex scene in the entire series. Like, what the fuck? Now, the article was written by a woman by the name of Alana Vaginos, which, how the fuck can you get like a last name like that? That is like the first time I've ever seen a last name like that. But she goes on to say this onto the article, where she says, for those of you living under a rock, Game of Thrones has rather become infamous for its brutal rape scenes and general onslaught of sexual violence. The sex between Missandei and Grey Worm, however, was intimate, consensual, and came from a place of genuine love between two characters.
What is your major malfunction, numbnuts?
Yeah, like that hasn't happened before. I mean, let's completely forget about characters like Robb Stark and Talisa, Jon Snow and Ygritte, Sam and Gilly. Yeah, those three instances I brought up, they were consensual. Robb Stark did not want to marry one of the Frey girls in season 2 and chose to marry Talisa. And we all know what happened after that.
The Lannisters send their regards.
And not to mention, Ygritte and Jon Snow fell in love with each other, but Jon Snow was like, I don't want to do this, but then again, I love you, and loses virginity to Ygritte, and completely disavows his vows from the Night's Watch. And of course, you have Sam and Gilly, which is like one of the most sweetest sweetest couples in Game of Thrones. And what's really funny is that you completely disregard these three romances because you have this anti-white rhetoric going on with your whole company, Huffington Post. But regardless of what I say onto this video, you're gonna have your typical SJWs get absolutely butthurt until the rightful person finally wins over the Iron Throne and the White Walkers are finally defeated. And until then, SJWs will keep on bitching, moaning, and complaining that it is so evil. But what do I know? I'm just a fucking white male that just loves Game of Thrones. Without further ado, ladies and gents, I am Atticus, the Death Metaler. Hope you like this video. Subscribe to my channel. Links are in the description below. Keep it metal. Have a wonderful day.
And who are you? The proud Lord said that I must bow so low. Only a cat of a different coat, that's all the truth I know.